Each Sunday night, I'd watch the practice with none of my friends. I'd turn the dial to ABC to see the creep of the week that Bobby Donald defends. But I'm out of practice.
With your host, Keith Barney.
Out of practice.
And I'm Mike Indeglio.
Hey, Mike Indeglio.
Way back in high school, most every night, my mom watched QVC, so I missed the practice. There was no TiVo, what could I do? Wait 15 years, get fat, then stream it on Hulu. Out of practice.
I have a new computer coming, so I might quit halfway through the podcast if it arrives.
Do you think this means that our tech won't still blow up the podcast? No, it still will.
Out of practice.
And welcome to the Out of Practice Podcast, a weekly podcast in which me and my co-host, Mike, discuss David E. Kelley's award-winning series, The Practice. This week, we are already up to Season 6, Episode 11, The Test. How's it going, Mike?
You know, it's going well, man. It's been a stressful week again with work. Today's no exception, but I've got a very important meeting on the calendar. It's set for 2.5 hours, and it's right now. It's happening.
Right now.
This is my the early start to my Labor Day weekend. Memorial Day? Memorial Day weekend?
Memorial Day, yeah.
It's 3 days. You know what? That's what I know.
That's true. And we're recording this early because I'll be heading out to visit family on
Awesome.
Memorial Day, which will be fun, which means we have talked to each other on the internet 3 times in a week. Because we laid down 2 episodes of toys. Check it out. Look at my Star Trek toys here on KME Entertainment on YouTube. Yeah.
Good pitch,
And then,
buddy.
Yeah, how about that? You know, we're getting pretty good at this. We only do about 14 hours a week talking into this camera. So we're
talking to Phoenix directly.
Phoenix. And my mother,
And
who
your mom.
has not contacted me since our last episode.
Should I reach out? Should I send an edible arrangement or something?
You should. That would be hilarious.
Just as an apology.
Indeed.
There was something else. I was talking to CEO Jen this morning. What were we talking about? I wanted to bring it up on the show. I forget. But I have a Seize the Show tonight. I'm returning to the space. Which
the
should be
original
fun.
one. That's the one that I saw.
No, different space one. I think you'd prefer this because it's trying a little less hard. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. That's gonna be a good start to the weekend. And I don't have a lot of plans. I know that's a lie. We're going into Philly this weekend with some friends to have dinner, and I might surprise CEO Jen get a nice hotel so we can stay overnight, make a little night of it.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah,
Wow.
or I might just drive us home to save money. The jury's out.
Well, Jen, when you listen to this, you will know whether your husband values you enough to overcome his innate cheapness. So, is it money or love? We'll find out. Jen, text me when you hear this. I want to know what happened.
Should we? Well, before we jump into the show proper, there's something we do just to get certain elements of the internet interested in our show. Get the SEO, and you know what I'm talking about, buddy. I know that you do.
You mean it's a little segment called
We have tried for years to make this podcast a success.
We Failed.
It's time to give the world what it wants. Meow, meow. Hot cat content. Meow, meow. Hot cat content. Meow, meow. Hot cat content.
This just in. We were going to record later today because Charlie had an emergency situation, but we're going to get the update right now, Keith.
Yes. Well, it was never an emergency, but we came home. We're out for a run or something like that. We're out for a little while, and we got back, and Charlie, our good friend Charlie, had cut himself under his chin, and no idea how, no idea where. So it's weird when you have a cat because it's all around the house. It can run into anything. He's clumsy for a cat. He's remarkably clumsy. But anyway, so the cut was there for a while, but then he was licking at it, so he lost like a patch of fur, and it wasn't looking good. So I set up an appointment to go get him looked at, but they gave some advice, and we did some stuff, and then 2 days later, he's mostly fine. So we
Did
decided
he just
that
scratch
wasn't
himself,
necessary.
or was there like a battle that took place with the mole? Like, what was the situation?
I don't know. I don't think he scratched himself. I think he probably ran into something or stuck his head somewhere where there was something sharp. If I knew where it was, I would fix it, but I have no idea. I thought he might have been in his room, but the room was closed. We close it when we're not here, just in case. So, no idea. Cats are sometimes a mystery. So, but he's feeling fine. He never felt bad. But I'm nervous. I'm a nervous cat owner. I want him to be good. It's very sad when he's hurt. So
I get it.
but he's fine. He's totally fine now. So he's been, in fact, right above my head is our living room, and he's been running around like a maniac up there all by himself, bumping into the walls. It's it's Charlie. That's what he does.
So I have some hot cat content for this week.
Oh, nice.
A two-parter.
Okay.
And I'll start with, so my one cat, Dee Dee, my ginger cat, who is an acquired taste. He is rude to some, loves others, loves me.
He's awesome.
Yes. And, but he's wiggled his way into the closet where we keep the towels. He somehow gets his way in there, and then somehow he only gets the door open this far, but then somehow gets up 2 shelves into the towels so he can make a little nest, which I don't know how he's getting up there.
Nice.
But it's awesome. And if you open, the door is only cracked a bit, so the sunbeam shoots in. So I got this picture of him. You would never know he's a bad cat because he's so cute.
Oh,
He's
yes, that's what you sent me.
So cute. Oh, a little man.
Aww.
Anyway, so my mother-in-law had a cat, and she sent Jen a picture a month or two ago and was like, well, how'd the cat get so fat? And it's like, you got a pregnant cat. She's like, no, there's no way. I'm like, is it fixed? No. Do you let it outside? Yes.
What do you, then, I mean,
Surprise,
birds and
surprise.
bees. Do you need to have a birds and bees conversation?
With my mother-in-law? I've already had one with your mom. I might as well just make it a recurring
I'm seeing
segment.
my mother-in-law this weekend. Maybe I could explain it all to her. But
Anyhow,
like
she had these cute cats. Jen resisted.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a conversation. She's like, we have to go visit my mom. She's been going through a tough time for various reasons. And we're like, okay, we'll make a trip to go down to South Carolina and see her. But if we go to South Carolina, Jen, I'm coming back with one of those kittens. And Jen
You're going to add a
acquiesced.
third cat to your house?
I am going to do that.
Oh,
so
good
cute.
Lord. Mike is turning into a cat lady. And I'm envious.
Yeah. You be careful what you wish for. I'll bring one back. Charlie needs a brother.
Well, here's the thing. Charlie does not like the other neighborhood cats here.
Oh.
I think he's sort of territorial. He doesn't. There is, however, we have our woodchuck that was in our yard 20 minutes ago. Same size as a cat. It's also a wild animal, and he couldn't care less. Could not care less. Oh, what's up, Cece?
Say hi.
Cute.
You're on the podcast, girl. She's like,
Your
what
lighting
are you
is so
doing?
good with your background there. You look like
She's
you're-
calling me.
Wow. All right. Well, I think that is just enough
Yeah.
cat content.
Thanks, everybody.
That was great. Well, that's very exciting. I can't believe you're gonna have 3 cats, but I can't wait to meet the kitten. That will be awesome.
I should clarify that Jen has not officially signed off on this.
Okay. So perhaps the night in the hotel room is somehow a piece headed in that direction. I see how it is.
Well, there is a conflict that I think will interest some of our viewers that has something to do with more TV. I'll save your eardrums.
Did you though?
We've been hooked on Mayor of Easttown on HBO Max. I think we talked about it briefly. Maybe it takes place in Delaware County, which is where I was born, and over here it's right
also
stone's throw
where-
from where we moved.
It's also where my wife's from.
That's
I know
right.
Delco well.
Anyhow, series finale is this Sunday, which is when I was considering this romantic evening, and I'm pretty confident my wife would prefer to be home to watch the series finale.
There you go. Well, but here's the... So,
Is that my Easter egg from last week?
it was your Easter egg from last week. I was going over to get to the filings and subpoenas. I was loading it up. But little did I know, all of a sudden, Mike's in stereo.
Which nobody wants.
Nobody wants.
What was I saying? So I don't know. The series finale is this weekend. If you haven't been watching Mayor of Easttown, it is the mystery. It's a little bit of a slow burn, but we get there, and it's really interesting. It's a good show to watch.
Well, you could watch Murder Dirter at the hotel room.
No, yeah, but I got a whole comfy setup in here. I got it you want to watch it here. This is where we want it to happen. This is where the magic happens, baby.
I can hear Mike's head going. He's like, well, they're going to compress the signal going into the cable box at the hotel.
It really bugs me that people set up their TVs to they turn the color up to 80%. They oversaturate everything. I calibrate my screens.
Yeah. Well, clearly this is a man who is choosing tech over something else.
As Keith peers out the window for the UPS man with his new computer. Shall we hear what...
Truth.
Shall we hear what the multitudes are saying?
Yeah, here we go. Let's talk to the multitude.
Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas. Filings and subpoenas.
Well, folks, if you would like to join the multitude that is our moderator, you can email us at outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on social media at Out of Practice on Facebook and Instagram. And while you're at it, do us a huge favor. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other service. Just let us know. We will read it. We will welcome you to the jury. We will be grateful. You can even say bad stuff. It doesn't matter. We're going to read it. We're going to welcome you to the jury. So please do so. Very quickly this week, because we just recorded the last episode 3 days ago. But of course, last week on the episode Eyewitness, we witnessed Mike's dementia settling in. Mm-hmm. And Phoenix said, among his other synaptic misfires, Mike confused two Muppets, Waldorf and Statler, and a hotel, the Waldorf Astoria. The tagline of this episode, Keith gets a year older while Mike develops dementia.
It's got a ring to it.
It really does. We're both aging in our own way. I'm just sort of getting fatter and you're getting lighter upstairs. It's perfect.
Look, seriously, I don't usually show it on camera, but I'm just an aged man.
But you match the carpet matches the drapes there with your background. You sort of,
I know,
it's like a green screen down your head. That's amazing. Yeah, for me. I wish I were gray, as opposed to slowly, just follicle by follicle, sneaking back, which I didn't think I was doing, and then I saw a picture of myself from 20 years ago. I was like, oh crap. It's happening. Well, yeah, that's all right.
Better than the alternative for sure.
Which is
those people in multiple stages of denial about losing their hair, and it's I'm all for if you go bald and beautiful, do it. Make it a choice. You know what I mean? But it's those people who leave the
comb over.
moat. Yeah, the moat.
Yeah, no. I will embrace and accept whatever the ravages of age does to me. So I will try to go with some dignity, and I think if this comes any further, I'm just going to shave the top and be Picard. I think that's just.
Hold on. How did I tell this anecdote? I have an acquaintance. An acquaintance. Okay. I wouldn't say a friend. An acquaintance. Mm-hmm. I went to high school with, and on occasion I'll see him out and about. And for about 2 years, I was calling him Tallahassee as a nickname, and he just thought he didn't really get it, never really asked. But the truth of the matter was, my other friends were in on it. He had he was it was all pretty much gone except for this thing that just looked exactly like Florida. It was the perfect outline of Florida in his middle of his bald head. And so I just started calling him Tallahassee because I'm a dick.
You are a dick. Oh my
Anyway,
goodness! Yeah,
not for nothing.
Well, what's that song about Bobby being a dick?
Oh yeah, Bobby is an asshole. Oh my God, Keith.
Bobby is an asshole.
I'm sorry. I'm just all over the place today. We were like sort of in more TV before, but we weren't, but we are now. Did you watch the Friends reunion last night on HBO Max?
No, I never really paid much attention to Friends.
Interesting.
Because I didn't have any, so it seemed like it wasn't in my wheelhouse.
It is apropos, actually, to the period of time. You know what? I'll talk about Friends a little bit more in This Day in the Basement.
Okay, good. Well, let us then move forward and ask you what was happening.
We were done with Filings and Subpoena?
That's it. So we're going to hop back into the time machine to January 13th, the year 2002, and get right to it. Mike, what was going on?
This day in the basement.
Well, Keith, it should be noted.
Did you have friends?
It should be noted that I never watched Friends in its initial run. But when I first moved to New York, it happens a little bit later, but I won't mention when I moved. It wasn't until I moved to New York and they would play Friends in syndication. And it was like, it was one of those times where the syndication had just looped over from the finale into starting from scratch, that I watched it in its full run, like in real time over syndication. And that's when I kind of, Friends is like television comfort food. It's pretty awesome. And it was interesting to see them reunite last night, but doing that thing that is probably better, right? They didn't write an episode for them to be on. It was like this Fresh Prince thing. They filmed them all getting back together on the set, and there were emotions had, and you could see who had plastic surgery and who was recovering and all kinds of stuff. The internet really picks them apart, but I'm sure they were paid handsomely. So it's worth a watch if you were even remotely interested in Friends, which Keith wasn't. So I'd say it's a skip.
I'm not a multicam guy.
Yeah.
But I will occasionally, I enjoy Frasier, which is probably the only multicam that I would necessarily, multicam meaning it's filmed in front of a live studio audience with a laugh track and all that stuff. So, I like Frasier because it is sort of like a little play as opposed to a sitcom.
I never have watched but a handful of episodes of Frasier. I find it dry and I find Kelsey Grammer uninteresting. However, I have not, as an adult whose tastes have definitely changed, revisited it. So I think it's probably worth doing so.
No, I think you should. I mean, because it really is the highest level of that art form, where it really is like a drawing room farce for 22 minutes every week, and the performers are so good. I always just felt
that Fraser Crane was had his head too far up his ass, but now I understand that is the point.
The thing.
Yeah. So I have to definitely revisit.
He is the butt of the joke. He doesn't know it, but I mean, that was much more cutting edge back then, where you had on sitcoms, you didn't really dare to have unlikable or likably challenged characters, but you had Seinfeld come out sort of at the same time, and you're like, oh, all right, we can sort of. This is before Breaking Bad, where you rooted for the guy murdering people,
and then
anti-hero. You start rooting for the pompous, dork.
The Shield sort of did that too. Anyway, we've devolved. What was I doing this year? So, I've mentioned how broke I was at this period of my life. And so, interestingly, though I was studying Broadway theater and acting and such, I didn't get to see a lot of it. And the most of the performance I would get to see was by going to the Lincoln Center Library as a student, and I devoured those archives. I mean, I watched everything, and you weren't really supposed to without having a reason, right? So after a while, I just had to start making shit up. Like, I'm role research, or I'm directing a production, because they wanted a very specific reason why you had to watch that show. You couldn't just go and study. You weren't really allowed to do that.
And just behind the curtain, a lot of the Lincoln Center Library will film a lot of Broadway shows, and these are well shot, live performances on Broadway, but it's never released. It's never publicly released like they did with Hamilton or Shrek or whatever.
Yeah. And it's, by the way, it's nothing like Hamilton was filmed. It's a one wide shot, but you see the full percentage, because what it's basically archiving is not just the performances, right? But the production as it was, because theater is in it by its very nature ephemeral, right? So the original Sweeney Todd, staged by Hal Prince, it exists only on video in that library. You can see the tour on the VHS that was, but as the original Broadway company existed, and it's not always sometimes shows are selected for it, sometimes they aren't. Sometimes understudies are on. They pick one night and they film it, right? Like it just so happens you can go see my wife going on as an understudy in the Fiddler on the Roof revival from whatever year she did it with Rosie. It just happens to be caught on the video.
Oh, I didn't know that. I should go see that. We should do like a trip.
Yeah, we should. Anyhow, so the only thing I had seen in New York at this point was 42nd Street because our school took us to see Meredith Paradison, who was an alumnus who got us tickets. So if you weren't giving me a ticket for free, I wasn't seeing things at this point in time.
Sure.
Which brings me to this period of time. I had an accompanist in school. What was, you had people who were teaching the class, and then you had pianists, accompanists, who were ostensibly there just to accompany, but would often give some musical direction. I was so lucky to have some incredible people I met just because they played piano at school with me. And one is Gary Adler, who I guess people don't know, he wrote, what's the show?
He wrote on Avenue Q.
Altar Boys, Avenue Q. He's one of the composers, right? And at the time when I first met him, he was actually writing Avenue Q, but he was an assistant, or not assistant, what do you call it? A sub to conduct Urinetown.
Oh, cool.
And so he got us tickets to go see Urinetown, which I absolutely fell in love with. And this was right after, if I'm not mistaken, it had transferred uptown. It was an off-Broadway show that got brought uptown.
Right.
And
at the Henry Miller, now the Stephen Sondheim, after a huge renovation.
And aside from just being like a really bizarre, and ultimately it hurt the show. Like it's a hard marketing push because it's really satirical and amazing, but it's hard for like the people to sell a show called Urinetown, basically.
Right.
That all said, what I thought was really, really cool, and Keith, this is I think of interest to you as someone who would potentially play in a pit, right? Maybe, or music direct, conduct. This is the coolest entrance, maybe the only entrance for a conductor I've ever seen staged. Usually, if any acknowledgement to the conductor is made, it's because they walk on stage and everybody claps, right? That's usually the most. In Urinetown, it opens with sort of like a police state, and there's spotlights going everywhere, and the police are chasing this guy, and this guy is like climbing on the scaffolding up top, and then he climbs all the way down the scaffolding into the pit,
fun.
And then he starts conducting the overture. So awesome. I wonder if they got hazard pay for that, actually. They must have.
Cool, because you're almost a performer.
And they're climbing. They're climbing down scaffolding. Anyway, awesome.
That's super cool. Well, it actually remembers me. It reminds me, as you said, I music direct and play sometimes, but like only on my own stuff because like I'm not good enough to music direct or play anybody else's material. But I actually wrote myself an entrance in when I did Bloody Bloody Angela Lansbury, or yes, Bloody Bloody Jessica Fletcher is what it's called now. It was Bloody Bloody Angela Lansbury at that point. So the first time we did it at 54 Below, what we had, because it was a practical reason and a funny reason. One, because we started the show with a piano arrangement of the Murder, She Wrote theme, which I was like, I'm too scared to play that. I don't want to. That's too hard for me. So I brought in another pianist to come and start the show, and so he plays the theme, and then he starts the opening number, and then I enter and shoot him in the back of the head and take his spot at the piano. Because we want to start Murder, She Wrote with a murder.
Right. That's funny.
I actually had an entrance where I walked through the house and then shot the pianist.
That's awesome.
And then took his place. So there you go.
There you go. And this was also the first my first time backstage at a Broadway show, which was pretty cool. And that's my memory of it. This was around this time. I was poor. I was like intimidated to meet anybody, but it was cool. It was my first real look behind the curtain.
So cool. Yeah. I mean, the first time you go back is so, if you're a nerd like us, it's so intense because like those backstages at these houses that have, some of them have been there for 100 years, and all of these famous productions, like this is hallowed ground. And I genuinely feel that way about backstage at those Broadway houses. Anyway, awesome story. Good stuff. All right. So what I was doing, I was still up in Vermont after the holidays before the second semester of my senior year began. And we were all out on the pond at my parents' house playing what we called the Idiot Hockey League, which was us in our Cosby sweaters playing some hockey on the pond in Vermont. This was me playing, not the time last winter or the winter before last where I busted my elbow and turned it into every color in the universe. But we spent so many hours, still do when we can, out playing on the pond. We have to shovel it and flood it and had nets and all that kind of stuff. But there is college me. That's my father hip checking. Well, it's my father. He was a good defenseman, played high school, and knows how to throw a hip check. So we were doing that, and I also I was debating whether or not to say it on air, but I found an email. I mentioned a while back there was this girl who sort of broke my heart, and then I did the concert with her, and then we actually like met up that weekend, and that was weird. So. That's all I'm going to say about that. Weird. That's all I'm going to say about that. I regret bringing it up to begin with. But now.
It was weird.
Mercifully, it is time to spend some time talking about January 13th, the year 2002. And let's talk about...
It's time for the Out of Practice Podcast's This Day in the World. The greatest hits, the biggest movies, headlines from Vermont, essential sports updates, and for some inexplicable reason, the weather from 20 years ago. Now back to Keith and Mike.
Well, folks, guess who's back? It's Usher with You Got It Bad as the #1 song. The top movie in the 4th week of domination is, of course, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Just taken over the movie theaters. The cover of the Burlington Free Press had an article about the rise and fall of Enron. The first of the financial collapses that we've had in the last 2 decades. Certainly, there was a great documentary about it. Definitely worth watching. I watched it a couple of times back in the day. Now I don't remember anything about it. So, Enron, something bad happened. White guys with money. It didn't go well.
Yeah, it's called Enron, the documentary.
Oh, well, that's on the nose, but we'll take it.
Before you move forward, I feel like, last week I was effing with the sound and stuff, and I heard you say it in playback, and I should have mentioned it more. I think we need to take just an extra second to remind folks who might be of a younger age, Fellowship of the Ring wasn't just like a blockbuster. It was a seminal change kind of in our expectation of what high fantasy filmmaking could be. I mean, this was like, well, I guess Harry Potter had started as far as like adapting long works, but
2 months before.
Yeah, but like this was, I mean, the leap Peter Jackson took here to try to visualize such a storied franchise was the balls.
Oh, and the scope, filming all 3 movies at once.
Yeah. I mean, like I liked the Hobbit films and everything when we went back, everything he's done, but these first 3 really was just spectacular. Just seeing it, I remember just the jaw drop moments, all by beat by beat by beat, and just how great they are, everybody in it.
And how it holds up.
Yeah.
I mean, the incredible battles and the CG that they use, especially in the next 2 movies, like it still holds up, which is extraordinary. And
you and I are both Sams, aren't we?
What's that?
You and I are both Sams, aren't we?
Oh, 100%. Well, I want to be Sam, but I'm probably, I'm slightly more prickly. I'm like Gimli.
Yeah.
I'm
I
more
guess
grouchy.
everybody wants to be a Sam ultimately, and we're definitely not attractive to be anybody else. More, our casting choices are very limited.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I one of my favorite things about this movie. This was when we were first starting to date with Jillian, and she had never seen them before, and wasn't really in that world, and didn't understand that they were a really big deal. And so we were watching Return of the King, and this was, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 8 years after it came out. And she turns to me during one of the battle scenes like, wow, this is really good. People should see this. And I was like,
they should.
They did. Everyone in the world saw this. It won every Oscar available. But she was like, oh, this weird little like cult film that you've watched is actually pretty good.
It's not this film. It's the next. It's the second one, I think. The one with the tree battle.
The Tree Ents. Yes, that's
right.
And that's the Two Towers. And the incredible battle at the of Helm's Deep. Yeah. We need to get ourselves less deep into that nerd levels and get into something far more important.
Sure.
And that is...
It's time for sports ball.
The Philadelphia Football Eagles blew up Tampa Bay 31-9 at Veterans Stadium behind Donovan McNabb's 2 touchdowns and a stifling defense that picked off Brad Johnson 4 times, including a 59-yard interception by Damon Moore. The Eagles advanced to the division round where they will face the Chicago Bears in Chicago. The Giants picked up their copies of Madden 2002 and chilled on the couch.
And the leaf blower guy showed up at Mike's apartment and is just blowing leaves out there real loud, I'm sure.
Nice. Well, look, life finds a way.
Yep.
All right. You know what it is?
I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. And I'm not going to take this anymore.
It's time to talk about the damn episode.
Okay, folks, we are talking about The Practice. Hey, The Practice. Oh, yeah, I remember that.
I was just shooting the shit, catching up, forgot we had a podcast about anything of like very specific content.
It's literally just Mike and I talking.
Yeah,
like reminiscing about the good old days or the bad old
Jen
days.
said it
Those
once.
days
Jen was
suck.
like, people might, if you guys just talked and didn't even like reference The Practice, maybe I was like, yeah, but that's not the project. The project was for me to get through all the episodes, Jen.
We have to finish. We're so close. We only have 2.5 seasons to go. Anyway, so we are talking about season 6, episode 11, The Test. And The Test was written by Lucas Reiter, who last wrote on Inter Arma Silent Lieges, and directed by Christina Musri, who last directed An Early Frost. And that leaves us with my favorite question.
What is that supposed to mean? What's your problem? Is this what happens to women when you insert your penis?
What?
What does Mike think's gonna happen?
You know, what if he would have drank the curdled milk? Then what would have happened?
Guys, I'm not even going to say anything about banging today.
Whoa. How are you going to make it sexy then?
Well, Bobby's here. Bobby's back. I can see him on the TV there. And, we always wait till the end of the episode to really wrestle with some stuff, to wrestle with like how shitty our job is and blah, blah, blah. So this week, Bobby faces the test of his conscience, as he has often, but this time it's the crux of it. He's got a client who he finds out is guilty, for reals guilty, not just like assumed guilty. And Bobby, for the first time, is faced with his first test, and somehow he's going to finagle I don't want to say illicit, but a clandestine meeting with Helen that no one knows about, in which they scheme to uncover details of the case so that Bobby's client will be found guilty, just so that Bobby can rest at night.
Ooh, interesting.
So that's like the redemptive arc of Bobby before we kick him off the show.
Okay. Well, folks, if you would like to listen to us, listen to that podcast, listen to that episode, hop over to your favorite podcasting service of choice, and we will be right back to discuss the episode and hand out some oopsies. We will see you then.
And we are back, baby.
Yes, we are. We have just watched The Practice, Season 6, Episode 11, The Test. And now it is time to test Mike's memory with multiple recaps of the show, starting with...
Mike has 30 seconds to remember what just happened on the show. Well, Bobby, is working with some guy, and he's like, if I'm dead, call the cops. So he doesn't show up for court. Bobby calls the cops. Turns out he ain't dead. He's fingered for murder. And then he tries to beat the living hell out of Bobby. But Bobby makes it. Lindsay helps out this rape guy that she didn't do a good case with years ago, but she does a better job. This time her and Helen do a buddy cop team up. And guess what? He's out. And then Lindsay's like, and he has some sweet, sweet cash on the side. Kenny Rogers.
And still gets called Rape Guy. Okay.
Hold on. And right here, Mike is making fingers because I just need you to give me 5 seconds, Keith, that I will edit out because I totally forgot to write a OOPSY.
Oh, no. Well, see, last time we made you do it on the fly, and you actually did really well.
Okay, so wait. Okay.
I think this is it. Improvised haiku. Haikoopsy by Mike and Deglio. You get your bumper.
Where's Haikoopsy?
You can use your fingers.
Oh boy. I'm feeling very uncomfortable about this. Rape guy didn't rape. Lindsay and Helen do good.
Yes.
Bobby's ass gets kicked.
Yes. Well done.
All right, let me get out of this thing now.
Well done. I think you're going to have to improvise them every week now.
Not
You
bad.
just did so good. You did so
bad.
good. Oh, my goodness. Well, you know what else is good? It's our very spectacular award show that begins like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Out of Practice podcast, in unofficial, unsolicited, unfactual association with David E. Kelly Productions, proudly present
Oopsie.
The Oopsies! Celebrating excellence in acting good, lawyering good, guesting good, and being Tom Brady. Not to mention, this is where we rate the episode and stuff. Now, here are your hosts, Keith and Mike.
What the hell are the oopsies?
Well, I'll tell you, Jackie, they're a fake awards show that begins every week with the highest note and the biggest segment.
Most valuable.
Well, I mean, how can it not be Lindsay, right?
I mean, Bobby crushed it.
And got crushed. So, it's...
Yeah.
I mean, Lindsay, I guess we're not judging 7 years ago Lindsay, who clearly phoned that one in so hard that she felt
sure
the need
did.
to come clean about it. The old 3-day college try. Wow, she really put all her cards on the table, so to speak.
She sure did. She was honest.
But current day Lindsay, even though she still was skeptical, called in some 2 huge favors and really somehow convinced Helen to go above and beyond and elicit a confession. And what's interesting, actually, we can talk about it in the episode, like the cut thing. We'll talk about that later. Regardless, I think Lindsay really is the MVP here.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you could make an argument that Helen played a really big part in this and was willing to go the extra mile on Lindsay's behalf. But it did seem like both she and Simichovich's character actually gave a shit this time that an innocent person was in prison, and so that was great. But yeah, no, obviously it's Lindsay. Lindsay made this whole thing happen, did several rounds of negotiations, several rounds of good lawyering, and therefore she gets her MVL. Good job, Lindsay. All right, well, let's find out who else did a good job. Here we go.
Already famous cause you've been on TV, getting a paycheck, or the first entry on your IMDb. Way to go, but you're the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor on the episode.
You know,
We've got some choices here.
yeah. I think the two victims, well, actually, you got three really good choices, right? You got the two, you've got both of our Walking Dead cast members who had to play, you know, I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan really had to play like a whole bunch of things because he had to like seem potentially guilty, right? Still from the get. And then he had to play that sort of, I've been locked in prison for too long, angst, and a lot, he had to show a wide range. Whereas, inform me of the other, of Bobby's client's name, the actor?
Michael Cudlitz.
Yes. Michael Chicken Cutlets. He definitely was giving me, like, he had two major notes to play, right? The anxious, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And the I'm going to murder Bobby. Those were his two kind of main directives. Did them well, though I will say that I found Jeffrey Dean Morgan's performance to be a little more subtle, which I tend to like. You saw it a little bit more under the surface. Also, I want to give a shout out, however, to the actual rapist,
Jeremy Ratchford, who played the character of the actual rapist.
Played the character of the actual rapist. Thanks for that clarification. I don't want anybody writing me an email. Here's the thing.
I would assume somebody's listening to this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Specifically his, you know, I wish I could remember the specifics. Jen highlighted a potential. She's like, you might get an email about that. Oh yeah, I can't wait. I cannot wait to tell you about this off air, actually.
Great.
You know, often there are a lot of times we get like the creepy rapist or the creepy bad guy, and that's what they play. And you and I often comment, well, you know, it's like we can't award them for that because it's just it's just like a one note thing. However, sometimes people do it real good, and this guy was really effing good, right?
Yeah.
It didn't feel over the top. It wasn't scene chewy. He was just a dude who didn't give an F and was only looking out for himself. And I thought that he was believable. It was excellent.
Yeah.
However, ultimately, I think I want to go with Jeffrey Dean Morgan because I liked the plethora of intentions he had to play. That's my pick.
Interesting. Because I would not have. I have two that I'm torn between, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan is not on the list.
Okay, great.
For me, it's definitely between Michael Cudlitz and Jeremy Ratchford.
Okay.
Because I thought they both. I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan did a great job, but he's just sort of like, I'm a nice guy, I'm innocent. Whereas, you know, and you're right, Michael Cudlitz's performance is not subtle, but what's a subtle way to beat the shit out of Bobby in your prison cell? Like, it's not really and I thought he did a great job, but you know what? I think Jeremy Ratchford did such a good job being creepy. And because he had to, with all these like big guest stars on there, he had to sort of handle the linchpin of the episode. And he had to sort of make that all believable and take us on a journey from, wait, is he lying? When he didn't remember how we got in. And then like, oh, wait, no, it is the truth. And like, we think, we sort of, we go on a journey as he's giving his monologue. And I thought he did a really good job. So,
and he saw that ambiguity. You know, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, because we weren't sure.
Yeah.
We're not sure if he was lying or not. So congratulations, Jeremy Ratchford and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Now it is time for you killed your podiatrist or blew the case, but you let a single tear run down your face. You're the best actor on the show.
Now, keep this. Finally gets us to prove false a false narrative about you and I.
Ooh.
It has oft been said that should you shed a tear,
People say
that we will just hand you the oopsie. Now, in that regard, Lindsay should be a no-brainer here. Kelly Williams, she had a great emotional release at the end of the episode where she confessed her perceived inadequacies in her early days as a lawyer. She cried, even though she should be celebrating. And it was great acting. Kelly Williams is always excellent. You know how I feel about that. However, in this case, you said it as the scene was progressing, and you were right. I thought Bobby, though his motivations were a little unclear for his angst over finding his client of his, that's the writing, right? We can dissect the writing later. That's not Dylan McDermott making those choices. That he was put in that, he had to play that, and he did. And you see him really hurting over it and going back and forth whether he made a mistake. He and Steve Williams have some great. Steve Harris have some great scenes together. But as you said, in that ass kicking scene, I didn't see no stunt doubles. I mean, Dylan got his ass kicked and I believed it. He was choking the life out of him, and Dylan played the shit out of that. I thought from front to back, Dylan McDermott was excellent in this episode. He had to play Bobby McRambo within the framework of like a really grounded episode, so it worked on all levels. I really was impressed by his performance this episode. I think it's Dylan McDermott.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's very clear from the footage that there's only a couple of shots where they used a stunt for Bobby. He really did a lot of that himself. And you know what, honestly, like he played this whole episode well. You know, and again, the writing of it, how irresponsible Bobby is, but I don't know, we talk about it in tires, but at this point, it's not a weird thing that they wrote into an episode. This is a definitive character flaw in the character of Bobby. That he goes off half-cocked. He gets too emotionally invested. This is like who the character is. And so, you know, you have to sort of expect it now. It's part of the deal. But yeah, he did a really good job. He showed, some vulnerability earlier, and, you do most of your own stunts, and you get an oopsie. So Dylan McDermott, way to oopsie in this episode. Let's find out what our favorite old quarterback is up to in
the Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady.
Keith's been knocking him out of the parks. Last week was no idea. I don't remember either. Earthly idea. But this week is this week. You know what?
We recorded that 4 days ago.
I know. But Keith, to lighten your workload, I'm making this one easy. It's just Tom Brady and that ugly green ass sweater.
Tom Brady in an ugly green ass sweater.
You know that sweater I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh, I do. But of course, I'm like, now can I make a sweater out of green asses? I don't know.
Make it harder. I'm trying to help you out here. So that's the easy one. Let's get to it.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to announce how many spare tires this episode gets.
It's almost like they took a time machine to the future, Keith. Listen to our bitching and moaning about the tropes after tropes after tropes, and one by one did the opposite this week for me. This was totally ripe for, you know what? The guy's going to give his confession, but it's not going to be convincing, or it's not going to be conclusive. And so Helen's going to make a decision one way or the other that we'll have to take back and be like, well, what was it? Which way did it go? What's interesting is that this is the type of episode where that might have been kind of interesting, actually. because the questions, it would have highlighted more questions about how, like these things hinge on a very thin fulcrum. However, the fact that they let it play out. In fact, both of our cases were conclusively decided to our win, right? And on top of that,
not necessarily for Bobby, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, okay. That's fair. We can dissect that a little differently. But let me put it this way. Another trope that we kind of, every main player in our heroes across the board, either in the DA's office or in our firm, really, and you mentioned this a few times, were acting in the best interest of justice, right? They wanted the best for, like Helen and Lindsay worked together to like really try to get an innocent man out of prison if that were the case. And they both went above and beyond their due diligence to achieve that. Bobby really tried to like look out for his client's well-being, even though he had admitted to murder for him, and tried to like look out for his well-being while trying to not finger him for murder. And then even after, he was still trying to win that case fervently. And like, it only changed when he had to like fight for his life.
Right. That's true.
And on top of that, we also got, whereas the shouting over each other and the quibbles and the squabbles of the inner office, which we often sometimes play for laughs and sometimes it's just too much, or it's them selling each other out or to the bar or whatnot. In the end, when Bobby's hurt, they all come running like a family. And I don't know, I that all worked for me, right? Like maybe it's a one-off, but it all worked for me. I thought there are some issues I had with the writing. Like it felt, sometimes it just seems like asynchronous. Like it's just, but like you said, they have baked it into Bobby that he goes off half-cocked. So it's not totally out of nowhere. And, the Lindsay thing, they really gave context to why she felt so invested, right? Why she had to fight so hard this time. So that was really kind of full circle for me. I just really thought it was good. I mean, they don't all have to be, no, yes, there was a bombastic action sequence. So I guess it's not just like a plain case. But I got to say, like, ultimately, I really enjoyed it. Any nits I had, I'm willing to kind of, it didn't bother me so much. And I was really compelled. And it really put all of our characters back in a really good light that I appreciated. And, even the people who, like Eleanor and Jimmy who weren't, and not so much Lucy, but did we see Rebecca at all?
She had like one line.
Yeah.
About
they were at least researching, right? They were working hard to support. I don't know. I guess ultimately I want to give it 8.65 spare tires is what I'm feeling.
Yeah. Well, before I speak, I do want to give credit where credit is due to the stunt people.
Oh,
Ray
yes,
Lincoln's was the stunt double for Michael Cutlets, and Ron Sorrell's was the stunt double for Dylan McDermott, and the stunt coordinator was Ernie F. Orsatti. Good work on everybody's part. I mean, I really like this episode too. I thought that all of the stakes were high for each of these cases, and yet what happened was also earned. And the big fight at the end, which normally, I hate Bobby McRambo. I'm not interested in the sort of like super over the top pew pew kind of a thing. But this actually felt earned. It felt like this character would do this. It felt like this character would do this in this situation. It felt like Bobby would put himself in this situation. And the fight itself felt realistic. He didn't like smash a guy out of a window and hang him by his ankles for like in a way that you would never imagine was possible. Like this fight was down and dirty and there, and he did get his ass kicked. And I thought that was good. And Lindsay's situation there at this time, at the beginning of when DNA became a big deal, this sort of thing was happening. And so it is perfectly understandable, or not understandable, it's perfectly believable that Lindsay would have this type of a case come up and we would go through this journey. And I thought they did that really well. So honestly, I thought it was a good episode. I thought it was one of the stronger episodes this season, and which has not been that strong, and it was for an episode that ended in a brawl. It wasn't Twisty McTwisterson. The bad guy did it, and there was no, it didn't feel shoehorned. And so, I've got to give credit to, hold on, I got to pull it up. I think it was Lucas Ryder who, where is my rundown? Good Lord.
Know when to fold 'em. Know when to walk away.
Yeah, I'm ready to walk away. I have a computer like 8 feet directly above me.
I hear you. I'm looking.
I got to give credit to Lucas Ryder, who wrote this. However, Lucas Ryder, here's one thing you don't necessarily need to do, Lucas Ryder, is perpetually say full names of other characters, Lucas Ryder. So Mike Indeglio, everyone can see your name on the screen. So if I reference Mike Indeglio, I don't necessarily need to say Mike Indeglio to infer that Michael Indeglio is my podcast host here on the Out of Practice podcast with Keith Varney and Michael Indeglio.
I'm going to state it too. Like, I'm fairly confident, and I'm generally never fairly confident about anything, that we have had this conversation before.
Many times.
Yes. Like, this isn't a new phenomenon.
Well, it is a particular pet peeve of mine. It's not a pet. It's just something that I was given the advice as a young writer to look out for that, because it happens to everybody. Everybody starts out that way, and then having to go through scripts, removing 80% of the times a character says another character's name.
Look, I get it when if you have an arc that's continuing in multiple episodes, or you're coming back from commercial and you want to reiterate certain pertinent information, get it. But like you said, in a single scene, 6 to 10 drops of the certain guy's name is a little nuts.
Yeah, and I understand you need to go for clarity. We've got to remember who these things are. But like the way my brain works, I don't hear names, really. The name becomes a symbol for what that character means. And I don't remember any of the names of any of the characters. I can read an entire novel and not tell you the name of the protagonist, because the name just becomes a symbol and it means this person to me.
Of course, if you don't reiterate it 17 times, I'm liable to call you rape guy. So it's for me specifically.
It's just for you.
Yeah.
But I really liked the episode. I thought it was very strong. I'm going to give it an 8.82 spare tires.
So
there it is.
Before we kip, guys, if Mike decides to do his due diligence, you should be seeing the scene in which Jeffrey Dean Morgan bashes in the head of that other guy.
Gross.
With this bat here. And if not, I'm just going to show a screenshot for something. We'll see.
Let's find out how lazy Mike is of a Memorial Day weekend.
That's a good point. You do bring up a good, solid point.
Once an episode. All right, folks, you have gotten your way through the Out of Practice podcast, talking about The Practice Season 6, Episode 11, The Test. If you would like to join the conversation, please do so. Send us an email at outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Out of Practice Podcast. While you're at it, join the jury. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other service of your choice. Let us know. We'll be psyched to welcome you to the jury. Speaking of people we are psyched about, this episode is brought to you by founding sponsors Jorge Navoa, Cloud Lover 69, Leanne Wrights, Jennifer Masanova, and Kari Kuhn.
Did you know you can get your name on that list? I know you've been dying to. Make Keith just have to graphic design another list of people's names. I know you want to. You can do so by clicking the links in our show notes. You can make a one-time contribution. It's very helpful. We got to buy that computer Keith just bought.
It's true.
Or you can donate monthly, and it'll just take it right out of your bank account. You won't even know it's happening. You might even forget about it, which is what we are counting on. Folks, we do appreciate if you just let people know that we're two funny, desperately lonely guys. And if you don't hate what we're doing here, you can watch our Star Trek show, which is even more nerdy than this. At the end of the day, I want you to attack me, choke me out, and at the very last second, I'll poke out your eyes and shoot off some laser sounds.
Laser sounds. We've just learned too much about Mike.
Yeah, that got dark.